What's up, Jeepers? It's a bit rainy out today, so I decided to sit down and tackle my leaking water pump. So, pretty common for these older, getting on 20 years old Jeep TJs to need a water pump replacement. In my case, I could drive pretty reasonably, once a month, top up a little bit of coolant. But certainly every once in a while I notice a small puddle of coolant under the front axle. Also notice a little bit of coolant coming out of the back of the bell housing. Fingers crossed that it's just leaking from the front. But got me part way into the job here. Starting to get the radiator shroud off, serpentine belt loose. But all in all, pretty straightforward job to get it done. And here we go. Wasn't as hard as it could have been. Was able to pull out the clutched mechanical fan as well as the fan shroud. And what you hear in the background is right now I'm draining the radiator fluid. I decided to go ahead and in order to pull off the fan shroud easier, just connect the top radiator hose. Technically I didn't have to do that as part of this repair. Eventually though, you do definitely need to drain the radiator. You're going to pull out the bottom radiator hose as it goes into the water pump. And yeah, the only tip I might give you is got a little tripped up. The transmission cooler line comes across the bottom of the radiator and is actually cooled by a compartment in the radiator. And that was clipped into the bottom of the fan shroud. So when I went to lift out the fan shroud, I was kind of surprised that there was something connecting it. So this is the 4.0 engine here as the coolant's draining out the bottom. You can see there's quite a lot of space. This here is the water pump. Originally, the water pump pulley was bolted onto this flange here, and then screwed onto the front here was the actual fan clutch itself that then connects to the fan. Pretty straightforward. I've gone ahead and loosened this radiator hose. I pulled it off quickly, but the water is not drained quite low enough yet. Other things you can see here, I've actually also removed the idler pulley that sits here. The serpentine belt goes around that idler pulley and around with this tensioner putting tension on it. And so that has to be removed because ultimately this water pump is connected to this tube that feeds the heater core. So primarily the water circulates inside of the engine, but a small amount of the coolant will come out and go to and from the heater core via those pipes, this pipe and this pipe here. But ultimately, once this drains, I'll be able to remove these bolts here and actually go ahead and pop out the water pump. Should be easy. Okay, well, as expected, that was not too much work, but had a couple of interesting, frustrating elements to it. Basically, the water pump came off pretty easy. Let me get a light here so you can maybe see a little bit better down in there. You can see that large hole with a little bit of coolant still in there. Just 5 bolts around the outside of it. Number one frustrating part about this step is the time it takes to just clean off the old gasket. So spent a significant amount of time working around this area here with the razor blade, making sure this surface that ultimately has to seal with the new pump is fully clean. I will go ahead and get a green Scotch-Brite pad and go around this sealing area before putting a little bit of silicone to help the gasket. But next step actually is for me to go get the water pump. I kind of started this off without a replacement pump in hand, so I will jump over to the local parts store and get that. Okay. Well, that didn't really take very long, which is one of the things I love about Jeeps. So I was able to run right around the corner to the local O'Reilly Auto Parts, and they had a couple of options in stock, some of them less expensive that were remanufactured. I went ahead and went with this Murray, which is an all-new pump, lifetime warranty. Certainly from reading the forums, everyone recommends going straight for the Mopar units, but as far as I know, those are no longer being made for these 20-year-old Jeeps. So hopefully this Murray will last a reasonable amount of time. Okay, one thing I am going to show you is that got a gasket here, new gasket for the water pump goes over, as well as a small amount of water pump gasket sealer. And so what I'm going to do is just quickly coat this surface here with a small amount of gasket sealer. Go ahead and put the gasket on, and then go coat the front of the engine the same way before bolting it up. You'll notice that it'll be a very thin coat. Also, I've already attached this heater feed and gotten it nice and snug. I may have to adjust it just slightly to ensure that it points in the right direction. Now, this hole here that goes up to that feed is pretty important that it seals. You'll notice that it's slightly off center with the rest of the clamping force of the pump, of the bolts. It's kind of outside the main sealing ring, so I'm gonna make sure that that also gets well sealed. Otherwise, I'm gonna focus my attention on the area inside of the bolts because that's ultimately where the water is exposed, the coolant. So you can see it doesn't take very much. Ultimately, the main gap is being filled, any imperfection by the gasket itself. Because this is a flange that's trying to seal, I did go ahead and make sure to check all of them. I was actually surprised because there's various different angles for getting at each of the bolts. When I originally torqued them by hand, I thought they were all even. One of them was actually pretty far down. So go ahead and torque each to the recommended 17 foot-pounds. Took care of one other thing that I wanted done. When I did the body lift on the Jeep, I didn't go ahead and pull the fan shroud out because I was able to get the fan to just clear without modifying the fan shroud. When you raise the body, the engine stays put, but the radiator and therefore the fan shroud connected to the radiator raises up. I was able to move it down just by changing the screws without actually clearancing it, but they do actually recommend that you clearance where this fan shroud clears the lower radiator hose. So I went ahead and did that since it was out and I had the Dremel. So now it will sit slightly lower. So with that done, we will go ahead and bolt it all together. Okay, well, everything's back bolted up here. The fan itself, and ultimately put the serpentine belt back on. So I did end up putting the serpentine belt on last. As I was doing that, I was wondering, man, should I put the serpentine belt on before I put the fan on and the shroud in? But I think ultimately it's a pretty easy task, so it slid right in. So I was happy with that. So I'm actually gonna go ahead and let that silicone dry for a few hours before filling it with coolant. But that's the last step. Fill it with coolant and good to go. So that's a water pump on a Jeep Wrangler. Not bad. Did it just in an afternoon, including running to the parts store to get all the parts. And so there we go. I hope you enjoyed.